The sun had barely reached its highest point, but already the Alabama heat was stifling. A thick haze shimmered over the cracked asphalt outside Granger's Auto and Tech, the largest, and only, garage for miles. The building itself was a patchwork of rusted corrugated metal, oil-stained walls, and fading hand-painted signs. Inside, the scent of motor oil, rubber, and sweat clung to the air like a second skin. The fans overhead did little to fight the heat, spinning slowly, tired from years of use. Country music buzzed low from a dusty radio set on the workbench, but it was drowned out by the grumbles of the mechanics huddled around the central work table. The source of their frustration sat silently before them, a futuristic engine, sleek and intimidating, unlike anything most of them had ever seen. It was a prototype, flown in from a high-tech engineering firm in Germany. The company was hoping to find a stateside partner to help with its diagnostics and repair, and Wayne Granger had pulled every string and favor to get it delivered to his shop for testing. But now, after 3 weeks of scratching heads, burnt fuses, and late nights, the damn thing still wouldn't start. The engine looked deceptively simple, with titanium alloys, fiber cabling, and digital monitors embedded in its housing. But every time they tried to run it, something failed. Sometimes it would hum, other times it sputtered. Once it emitted a disturbing pop and smoked until someone nearly pulled the fire alarm. The manual came in 3 languages, none of which fully explained the firmware or the underlying tech. It was like trying to repair a UFO using a screwdriver and guesswork. Wayne stood with his arms folded, watching as his best mechanic, Darren, wiped sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand and said, "Boss, this thing ain't American. It's alien. I'm telling you, I done rewired it twice, replaced the thermocoupler, reflashed the firmware, still won't ignite." Wayne, in his 40s but already graying at the temples, spat on the ground and chewed at the end of a toothpick. "Hell, Darren, at this point I might have better luck prayin' over it." Laughter rolled around the garage, but it was dry, exhausted. Everyone was frustrated, not just with the engine but with the idea that their small-town shop might have bitten off more than it could chew. If they couldn't fix it, they'd lose the contract. And Wayne hated losing more than he hated paying taxes. That's when the front door creaked open, letting in a beam of sunlight and a figure silhouetted by it. Zuri Washington stepped in, holding a brown paper bag in one hand, her phone in the other. She squinted against the brightness and looked around for her dad. She wasn't dressed like someone coming into a greasy shop, clean hoodie, sneakers that still looked white, and a calm, sharp confidence about her. "Daddy," she called. Big Joe Washington was leaned over a rusted Ford truck in the corner, his big frame stooped low, hand massaging his shoulder. He turned, smiled, and waved. "Over here, baby girl." Zuri crossed the shop floor, dodging wrenches and oil stains like she'd been doing it her whole life. She handed him the lunch bag, and he thanked her quietly, kissed her cheek. But before she could leave, Wayne noticed her. "Well now," he said, voice booming. "Ain't that convenient? Speak of the devil and she shows up herself." Zuri turned, uncertain. "I'm sorry." Wayne grinned, and there was something smug behind it. "Just talking about your daddy here, how he says you're some kind of miracle worker with engines. Says you could outfix every man in here." Big Joe stiffened, embarrassed. But Wayne cut him off, eyes still on Zuri. "Tell you what, you see that over there?" He pointed to the futuristic engine. "That there's been the death of our pride for 3 damn weeks. Nobody's been able to fix it. Not my lead mechanics, not the techs from Huntsville. Hell, even the Germans ain't got it right. But since your daddy says you're some prodigy, why don't you take a stab at it?" The room got quiet. The challenge was clear, and so was the sarcasm behind it. Zuri raised an eyebrow. "You want me to fix that? You said you're smart, didn't ya?" Wayne baited. "Said you studied at that fancy engineering school up north. What was it again?" "NYU. MIT, Zuri replied coolly. Right. You wanna prove your daddy right. Fix it. I'll even sweeten the deal. You fix that thing and get it running in 10 minutes, I write you a check for $50,000. You mess it up, well, We'll just say the myth's finally busted. Someone laughed, but it was nervous. This wasn't just a joke anymore. Big Joe stood up straight. Now hold on, Wayne, that ain't fair. Zuri raised a hand, silencing him. Her gaze didn't flinch. Do you have the diagnostic tools? She asked. Wayne blinked. We've got everything they sent with it. Plus a couple things of our own. Flathead screwdriver. Scope camera. A monitor that can run firmware patches. And a hex wrench set. That's all I need. That caused murmurs. She wasn't even going to look at the manual. Wayne gestured to the tool table. All there. Knock yourself out. Zuri didn't hesitate. She took off her hoodie and tied it around her waist, revealing a t-shirt stained with old oil spots, the kind that don't wash out. She stepped over to the engine like it was an old friend. Her fingers moved quickly, confidently, like she had already solved it in her head. She plugged in the scope camera, threaded it through the engine's core, and pulled up a live feed on her phone. Someone installed the cooling rod upside down, she murmured to herself. That's what's blocking the airflow loop. And the memory valve's receiving corrupted data because the firmware's in Kelvin, not Celsius. Basic translation error. Wayne squinted. Wait, what language is that firmware in? Old German tech dialect. Pre-2016, she replied, not looking up. She pulled out a small flash stick from her back pocket and plugged it into the diagnostic port. Wait, you got software with you? Darren asked. Wrote it myself. Just a patch to localize the readouts. Won't take a second. The room went completely still. Zuri adjusted the internal wiring, twisted the hex nuts on the main ignition coil, and realigned the fusion rod. She tapped her phone screen a few times, and then stepped back. Ready, she said. Wayne shook his head, skeptical. You're telling me that's fixed? She folded her arms. Try it. He walked up slowly, as if afraid it might explode. He reached for the ignition panel and hit the green button. The engine whirred. Lights blinked on. The hum deepened, smooth, constant. Then it roared to life. Not a cough. Not a stutter. A perfect, uninterrupted ignition cycle. Everyone in the room jumped. Darren dropped his wrench. One of the techs cursed under his breath. Wayne's mouth opened, but no words came out. The German fusion compression engine was not just alive, it was purring. Zuri stood still, calm, like it was nothing. Wayne turned to her slowly. How'd you do that? She finally looked him straight in the eyes. Because I don't guess. I study. I build. I fail and I learn. My father taught me how to respect a machine. MIT taught me how to read its language. I've been building systems smarter than this since I was 19. Wayne swallowed, his face a mix of awe and something close to shame. Well, I'll be. Zuri stepped forward, wiped her hands on a towel, and said, you owe me a check. But more than that, she had earned something no one could price, respect. Big Joe wiped a tear from the corner of his eye, trying to hide it. For the first time in weeks, the garage wasn't filled with frustration, but with silence. The kind of silence that happens right before everything changes. And Zuri Washington had just changed everything. Word of what happened in Granger's auto and tech spread like wildfire. By sundown, it had reached the gas stations, the barber shop, and even the diner down by the highway. In a town where nothing much ever changed and everyone knew everyone, the story was impossible to ignore. Big Joe's daughter fixed the impossible engine. The one that had stumped seasoned mechanics, flown in from Germany, left to rot on the garage table. 10 minutes. A few tools. Her own software. And she walked away like it was nothing. By the next morning, a camera crew from the local station showed up. Wayne, still recovering from the shock, tried to clean up the garage and make himself the hero of the moment. He stood out front in his work boots and best denim shirt, shaking hands and smiling like a proud father, even though he'd been the one mocking her less than 24 hours ago. Zuri didn't care about that. She wasn't interested in fame. She had bigger things on her mind. While the reporters grilled Wayne for sound bites, Zuri sat with her father under the shade of the garage's back awning. He was sipping his coffee, rubbing his fingers like he always did when the arthritis flared up. She watched him quietly for a moment, then said, "You told him about me, didn't you?" Joe chuckled. "Course I did. Told him plenty. Man didn't listen until you made him look like a fool." Zuri smiled, but only for a second. Her mind was racing with thoughts. About the engine, the software, and something else, something deeper. "You know what kind of engine that was, right?" she asked. Joe nodded. "Fusion compression. Some kind of hybrid between gas and kinetic cycles. I read a bit about it in those papers you sent me." She leaned forward. "That's not just an experimental engine. It's a test module for the new line of eco-tactical drones being built for the Department of Energy's Climate Division. Military adjacent. Low noise. High yield. Extremely confidential." Joe blinked. "You're saying the government's involved?" Zuri nodded. "Wayne didn't get that engine by luck. Someone's trying to beta test these systems off record, and they figured a small town garage wouldn't raise suspicion. But that patch I ran. It gave me access to the root protocols. I saw everything." Joe stared at her, the coffee forgotten in his hand. "You mean to tell me?" She leaned in. "They're hiding tech that could revolutionize the entire energy sector. And they're burying it in places like this. You think they expected anyone here to fix it? No. They wanted it to disappear in the mess." Joe sat back in his chair, exhaled long and slow. "And you just pulled it back into the light." Zuri didn't answer. She was already thinking 2 steps ahead. The engine was part of something larger, a project called Helix Shift, something she'd only heard whispers of during her internship under Drive. Home in Sweden. She hadn't connected the dots until now. The firmware, the compression structure, even the copper layouts, they all matched Home's original schematics. Which meant someone had stolen her mentor's work and handed it off to a shadow firm. That night, she drove home with her laptop on the passenger seat, her mind spiraling with possibilities. She could walk away. Pretend this was just a fluke. Let them have their secret engine and their hidden project. Or she could do what her gut told her. Expose them. She opened her laptop the moment she got inside and began pulling data from the diagnostic logs she'd stored from the engine. The IP addresses, the firmware signatures, the internal code naming, all of it was embedded with clues. She traced one address to a private research facility in Nevada. Another to a company called Corva Tech, an energy corporation with multiple government contracts. It was dirty and deep. The more she uncovered, the more disturbed she became. 3 days passed. By then, she'd mapped out nearly the entire network behind the project. Corva Tech was laundering government tech through civilian repair shops to test how easy it was to bury innovation. The fusion engine she'd fixed was just one of 5 currently floating across the US, and every mechanic who failed to repair it had unknowingly proven its impracticality. That's how Corva Tech planned to kill Home's clean energy dream, not with a patent dispute but with engineered failure. Zuri stared at her screen, fists clenched. She couldn't let it happen. She decided to confront Wayne, not just about the engine but about the truth. When she returned to the garage, she found Wayne in the office, watching himself on the news replaying the scene for the 5th time, pretending like he'd trained her himself. "Mind if I come in?" she asked. Wayne looked up, hesitated, then nodded. "Zuri, you're the star of the show, girl. You seen the news. Whole town thinks you're some kinda wizard." She didn't smile. "We need to talk." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Shoot." She dropped a printed packet on his desk. "That's a summary of the engine's data logs, including access points, IPs, firmware callouts." He frowned. "Why would I need?" "Because this wasn't some innocent test," she said, cutting him off. "This was a cover-up. That engine you had, it belongs to a government-backed project called Helix Shift. And it's been blackballed. Corva Tech is trying to kill it quietly before it goes public." Wayne looked down at the pages, then back up at her. "You're saying I got involved in something illegal?" She nodded. "You were a pawn. We all were." Wayne leaned back, mouth tight. "And what do you plan on doing with all this?" Zuri's eyes locked on his. I'm going to expose it. But I need your help. He chuckled bitterly. Why the hell would I help you? I just got a contract offer because of that engine. Corvatech wants to send more parts. They're offering me more money than I've ever seen in my life. They're buying your silence, she said flatly. You sell out now, you're part of the problem. He didn't answer right away. But the guilt on his face was unmistakable. Zuri stood. You once told my father people in this town should know their place. Well, maybe it's time you knew yours. You've got a chance to be part of something real. Or you can go down with them when this all comes out. With that, she walked out. That night, she got a call from an unknown number. She answered it cautiously. Zuri Washington. The voice was deep, calm. Yes, we're aware of what you accessed. We suggest you cease your investigation and delete all logs. Immediately. Who is this? You've seen enough to know that names don't matter. But your future does. We can make you very comfortable if you cooperate. Or very inconvenient if you don't. She hung up without responding. The next morning, her apartment had been broken into. Nothing stolen. Just her desk drawers rummaged, her hard drives unplugged, and a warning note left on the screen. Final warning. Zuri didn't flinch. She backed up everything to the cloud and encrypted it behind 5 firewalls. Then she reached out to the one person she knew would understand. Dr. Lena Holm. It had been months since they spoke, but when Holm saw Zuri's message, complete with engine schematics and firmware logs, she responded within minutes. How did you find this? Holm asked on a secure video call. They brought it to my hometown, Zuri explained. To bury it. Holm nodded, her eyes dark. I suspected as much. I was forced out of the project before I could finish.